right now is people, governments, private sector, etc., struggling to figure out what makes sense now, not 10 years down the road. I think that's really one of the challenges. How do you ensure that you invest in the right areas to invest in AI? And it's not an easy task because there's a lot of hype, there's a lot of myth, which I think needs to be debunked, and then settle on something that's practical and can be implemented. I mean, that's probably one of the challenges that many countries face, including ourselves. The other thing that we spoke about a fair bit, I think every speaker spoke about was data. Creating a data infrastructure that allows better use of data, as you say, labeling of data, discoverability of data. These things are difficult to do, and it's not something you do overnight. The nature of most countries today is that data is fragmented. It's very badly fragmented and low quality data. So in Singapore, I think one of our key priorities is really how do we create the right data infrastructure, and a lot of work's being done on how do we create the right data infrastructure, and a lot of work's being done on that. Now, the next thing is, I spoke quite a fair bit this morning about this platforms, right? You can't do everything yourself, that's reality. I think we learned that from day one. So how do you leverage a lot of good work that's done across the globe? It's not just within the country, it's really across the globe. Working with big companies, small companies, startups. I think everyone has a role to play in that. And the more we are able to do that, I think the more creative we can become. And I think the last two things is, the concept of use case is very, very important. We need to know what problem we're trying to solve. Most of the time, people charge into AI by just saying that I want to do something in AI because it's so great, so important. But I think that's a wrong approach. You really need to figure out what problem you're trying to solve. Look for the right technology, look for the right people, look for the right data, and then you'll probably get a better chance of success. So I think that's quite important as a summary. And then the last part is, as you mentioned, talent. Talent is everything. There's a global war for talent. Everybody wants the best AI scientists. There are not many around this world. And China and the US probably has most of them. And why would you go anywhere else, right? Because at the end, there is a center of gravity in all these things. Putting 3 AI scientists in one country is not going to solve the problem. Having a critical mass is important. So how do you ensure that you get the right centers to be built and the right people in it? So that's my summary.
Oren, do you want to add? Or yeah, sure, I can answer what the speaker said. So, like specifically in the drug discovery and medical space, there's challenges where you can't even annotate the data because we don't know how to interpret it. So I think unsupervised learning is going to have a big impact there. So we can actually start making sense of things that are, we're not really capable of understanding yet, but we can really make a lot of discoveries that way.
We heard a lot about hurdles and opportunities at the same time. I would challenge further and raise the same question to everyone, which is, among the hurdles, if you have to choose one, say lack of data, lack of trained people, sometimes laws or regulations, in particular related to privacy or hardware, computational facilities, and lack of data or whatever. If you have choose one challenge, or in mathematical terms, binding constraints, what would that be?
If I had to pick one, it would be lack of data. I've seen more applications that are hindered by lack of data than any of the other. I think all the other limiting factors and challenges are important, but I think lack of data is the sort of universal big constraint. If somebody says, well, I've got a great idea to use AI for this application, then they find I need how many labeled examples, and pretty soon they're less enthusiastic.
So there's another lack that hasn't been mentioned yet, but I think it is really ultimately going to hold us back, which is lack of imagination. And let me give you an example. The first color television was built by an engineer at RCA, Radio Corporation America. I don't even know if it exists anymore. But the reporter asked him, could you tell us what your invention is going to be used for? And he said, well, this is going to revolutionize the telephone. And it was because that was the technology of the day, and he thought that, it would be used for the telephone. Of course, it was used to create a whole new industry, a television industry, and then an advertising industry. And no one foresaw that. No one could imagine that. And just to give you another example, in 1990, when the internet went public, it was being used by academics for sending the data and papers back and forth. But could anybody there have imagined what influence the internet now has on every aspect of our daily life, and has revolutionized all commercial industries, it's revolutionized the music industry, it's revolutionized the movie industry, it's revolutionized social media, it's changed politics. These are things that no one imagined. And that ultimately is why we can't predict the future, is that there's going to be these unimagined applications that are going to be the most important ones. But we just have to grow into them.
Yeah, and you see, like going on to the lack of data, lack of imagination. I think one of the challenge I find, especially in the public sector, is in some ways the lack of courage to actually change. When we talk about AI, we talk about digitalization, there is a need to fundamentally change the operating model. And that's scary. It's scary for everyone. I mean, and worse is public sector, right? Because people are so unused to massive transformational changes. It's that you talk about transformational changes, but the reality is that what we're changing is just iterations of a current model. Are we able to disrupt the model totally and say that throw everything out and start from scratch? Very few people will be willing to do that, because the inherent problem that's going to cause, whether it's dislocation of people, dislocation of jobs, etc., it's not small. And to me, I think we have seen changes, but fundamental changes are hard to come by.
Yeah, I'll follow that more with a technical note. So, because just the way AI applications work is so different than traditional applications. Like a lot of startups and even big companies struggle to actually figure out how to implement and deploy some of these technologies. So you really do figure out how to manage the data well, and the data can look very different from different inputs. If it's something that's online, and also a lot of younger talent only wants to do machine learning research. So when we're trying to recruit people, it's actually hard to find traditional software developers. So that's another smaller challenge. It's still there.
Okay. We have about 23 minutes left. I think we can have some time for Q&A from the audience. Do we have a question sheet, or do we go in live and maybe we can get questions from the audience? So if you have questions, please raise your hand. And there's one gentleman over there.
Don't be shy.
좀 다른 각도의 질문을 하나 드리고 싶은데, 예전에도 AI에 대한 부분이 많이 붐이 났다가 사라지고 또 붐이 났다가 사라지고 하는 과정이 여러 번 있었잖아요. 최근에 몇 년 사이에 이제 딥러닝 기술에 따라서 이런저런 붐이 많이 일어나면서 구글이나 애플이나 페이스북이나 여러 나라가 투자를 많이 하고 있는데, 이런 것이 혹시 예전과 같이 이게 버블이 돼서 실질적으로 힐링 유스케이스 나오지 못하고 데이터 부족으로 사라져갈, 다시 한번 침체기 맞을 수 있는 가능성은 없는지, 요즘 보면 그런 생각을 종종 하거든요. 예를 들어서 미국에서 IBM의 마스 프로젝트 가지고 이 병원에 적용을 했다가 막상 써보니까 별로 좋지 않더라 라고 하는 느낌이 나서 도로 이렇게 사라져 간다는 얘기도 나오는 것 같고, 또 그런 들은 적도 있고, 그런 거 보면 좀 이렇게 단편적인 부분은 나오지만 적용에 대한 것이 그 투자에 대한 효과가 없다 그러면 좀 이렇게 사라져갈 수 있는 그런 가능성에 대한 부분은 없는지 그런 부분 어떻게 생각하시는지 좀 듣고 싶습니다.
Let me take a...
Yeah, Terry and Bill
Yeah.
have been in this field for such a long period.
Yeah, there were three sort of surges of excitement about AI. The first one was really around the perceptrons in the 1960s, which Minsky and Pepper put to death